We've been taking a lot of time, Christian, talking about understanding our buyer process and then portraying that value. There's a lot of value in conveying that to sellers too. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, it's kind of, I think, a missed art, right? Right now, there's a lot of focus on, as you said, on the buyer process. And then there's a lot of consternation on the other side about unrepresented buyers. And one of our agents, top producer, lots of respect for him, was telling me last week how he explains to sellers what his process is with an unrepresented buyer, which is very similar to what the overall buyer process is. And I feel like it's important to remind people to do this and to take this important step, because as you're sitting down talking to a seller about listing their property and you're talking to them about your obligations as a broker and their obligations as a seller, and we start diving into the conversation about unrepresented buyers, I think them understanding what your process is with an unrepresented buyer and why that is important to them helps ease that conversation and ease their mind. I want you to think for a minute about sitting across the kitchen table from a seller and explaining to them what maybe happens often when you get a sign call or when an agent in the market gets a sign call and we drop everything and we run out and we meet this buyer. We don't know the first thing about this buyer. They're not vetted. We don't know if the name they gave us on the phone is accurate. We don't know if they are there to really look at the house to purchase it, if they're even qualified to do that, or maybe they're at the house to case it so they can come back and break in later. There are some significant safety concerns to the seller with our buyer process as it relates to unrepresented buyers. And I think it's really important to lay that out for a seller and lay out to them their risk of us running out and showing an unrepresented buyer without vetting them, and getting them to understand that, hey, listen, this is going to be my process if somebody calls me and we've got an unrepresented buyer. Are you okay with this? And at that point, I think then you can have the conversation with the seller about your compensation and about the risk mitigation around bringing an unrepresented buyer, bringing the seller a contract, an offer from an unrepresented buyer. I think the foundation of that, Patrick, is starting with explaining that process with them. And I always say, people have to understand the why. You can't just say because. It is, why is this important? Why is this important to you? And I think to a seller, knowing that you're going to vet a buyer and you're going to go through those extra steps is of critical importance, especially right now.
Yeah, it helps to explain why they ought to hire you as a listing agent and how you're giving them a lot of peace of mind through this process. I think a lot of times as agents, we take for granted this process that we're going through with our clients. You and I, maybe we do this 50, 60, sometimes feels like 800 hours a week. But in reality, for this client, it's a really unique process. They might only do it a handful of times in their whole life. And so giving those sellers that peace of mind by also conveying, hey, this is the extra risk, this is the extra work that I'm going to be doing, and here's the compensation that's tied to it. That's why it's so valuable. So, Christian, great insight. Thanks for sharing. Are you guys watching these clips? I think they're more entertaining than some of those TikTok videos I've been watching. So I hope you stay tuned. We've got a lot of great videos headed your way. We'll see you on the next one.